As we saw in the InDesign Essential Training title, you can go to the Type menu and choose Glyphs. And this will show you a list of every character in a font. Some of these fonts have hundreds or even thousands of different characters in them. If there's too many characters to choose from, you can narrow down the scope with the Show menu. Currently, it's showing the entire font. But we can choose a subset. For example, we could choose all of the math symbols, or we could choose all of the punctuation marks. If you see a character in here that has a little black triangle next to it, that means there are alternates of this character. And if you click and hold for a moment, you'll see a list of all the different alternates for this. For example, there are many different characters in this font that could be considered a bullet. Let's go ahead and select one of these. And then if we want to insert that, all you need to do is place your text cursor where you want the bullet. I'm going to add it down at the end of the story to show that this is the end. I'll double-click on that to switch to the Type tool. I'll zoom into 400% with Command 4 on the Mac or Control 4 on Windows, and then I will simply double-click on the glyph I want to use. That inserts it in place. I love that the Glyphs panel keeps track of the last 10 characters that I've inserted. That makes it so easy to go back and insert them again. But what if I have more than 10 that I use frequently? Well, that's where glyph sets come in handy. A glyph set is a collection of any characters from the same font or from many different fonts that you want to put together. And you can create a new glyph set by going to the Glyph panel flyout menu and choose New Glyph Set. You can call it anything you want. I'll call it David's Glyph Set. I'll click OK. And now we have a glyph set to work with, though we can't see it quite yet. You can add any character to a glyph set first by finding it in the glyph panel. For example, I'll come down here to Ornaments, see all the different ornaments in this, and then I can either select it and go to the flyout menu and choose Add to the glyph set. And of course, we could have multiple glyph sets, but in this case, we just have one. So I'll click on that, and it's added to my glyph set. Another way to add something to a glyph set is to simply right-click on it, and you could say Add to the glyph set here. I'll just add a few different ones here, add this to the glyph set, and so on. I can also change the font to something different. Let's say Myriad Pro, and look for a character that I want to add here. I have no idea what this character is, but why don't we add it? I'll say add this one to the glyph set. To go look at my glyph set, I could go to the flyout menu and choose View Glyph Set, but there's a much easier way, and that is to simply pull it out of the Show menu, because all of your glyph sets show up here at the top of this menu. There's my David's glyph set, and there are the 4 glyphs that I've added to this set. Now, the funny thing about glyphs in these glyph sets is that they usually remember their font. That is, if I double-click on this character, it's going to add this character in the original font, that Myriad Pro font. But there are some characters that I don't want it to remember the font. For example, let's say I wanted to remember the euro symbol. I'll go down here and choose Currency. I'll grab my euro symbol, and I'll add it to my glyph set. But now, let's say I wanted to add the euro symbol up here. If I double-click on that from my glyph set, it adds it in the original font, not the font that is surrounding it. That's really annoying. I would like to tell InDesign to just use the font of wherever the text cursor is. Don't remember the font with the glyph. Well, you can do that by editing your glyph set. I'll go to the flyout menu and choose Edit Glyph Set. And I'll select the glyph set that I want to edit, in this case, my David's glyph set. There are several things we can do here. For example, we could choose a character and delete it from the set. I don't know what that is, so I might as well just delete it. We can also select the glyph that we want to edit and come in here and change which font we want to remember, or even turn off this checkbox and InDesign will no longer remember the font associated with that glyph. It'll simply remember the Unicode value. That's why there's a little U symbol there. I also think of that U as unaffiliated with any font. Let's go ahead and click OK and see how it works now. You see the U also appears here. Now, if I click over here, just before the, I can add the euro symbol, and you see that it gives me the proper font. Or if I zoom back to Fit in Window with Command 0 or Control 0 on Windows, and I'll click up here before the Dragon Well text, and I'll add that same symbol, and you see that it's in that font now. With all the fonts on your hard drive, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of different characters at your disposal. The Glyphs panel and Glyph sets help you access those characters quickly and easily. But there's one more challenge you may encounter when dealing with special glyphs in your document: searching for them with Find and Change. And that's what we'll look at in the next movie.